Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody, to Bacon and Eggs Show, episode 47, April 11th, 2021. Back from our little Easter break. Jay, did you have a good Easter? Did you have a good little holiday?
Did, yeah. Saw the family down in Schulenburg. It was good to see them. And Easter Bunny had already made his way down there on Saturday, so Finley got to enjoy that. And it was good to see them. So yeah, how about you? Did you have a good Easter? Little break over the Easter weekend?
Yeah, it was good stuff. Nice relaxing weekend. But we weren't short on sports news over this break. So
No, we were not.
We can jump into the cup of coffee and then get to the big news out of the 40 acres. And
yeah, real quick, cup of coffee. It's WrestleMania weekend. Had some matches last night already. They split up the show now on Saturday and Sunday. So last night the WWE Championship match happened and Bobby Lashley retained over Drew McIntyre. But the big event of the night was for the first time, two black women went head to head in a title match, and it just happened to be the main event of the first night of WrestleMania. Bianca Belair, who won the Women's Royal Rumble to earn this title shot, beat Sasha Banks in that match. So just wanted to lead the show off with that historical little tidbit there on the WWE side, since it was WrestleMania weekend and we got some more matches to go tonight. So it's a good card heading tonight. And yeah, you got any WrestleMania memories, Kerry?
Thinking, was it WrestleMania? I'm just thinking back to the cage match with friend of the show Mick Foley. That was that WrestleMania with the Hell in the Cell.
No, that was like a King of the Ring pay-per-view.
Okay, that's just the like
8 or something like that. But yeah, is that the WWE moment that stands out with you? Him getting thrown off Hell in the Cell.
Oh yeah, like getting thrown off the top of the cage, like just the crowd, the whole thing, like. That's like the WWE memory, like forever for me. Like that was the greatest.
Yeah, that was an important time in wrestling there when WWF was going against WCW, and that was a big moment that brought a lot of eyes to the WWF at the time. So I could see why that one would stick with you, man. Yeah, I think that would stick with I think that's the one that most people go to. Hey, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen in wrestling? Mick Foley, Undertaker threw Mick Foley off Hell in a Cell. Absolutely.
Yeah, he got thrown off a 20-foot high cage. Like, it's not
kind of a big deal.
Yeah, kind of a good match. So you don't see it every day.
Well, that's the thing, is that he got thrown off, and then they still had the rest of the match when he got chokeslammed through the top of the cell, and then thumbtacks came out, and he got thrown in. Chokeslammed to the thumbtacks. Like, that just goes on and on. But anyways, it's WrestleMania weekend, so I wanted to touch on some wrestling to start the show. And now this next topic was a bit of a Royal Rumble, if you will, to get this new coach over. And Kerry, what happened with some Running Horns head coaching news, man?
Well, so we have a coach now. Since the last time, our last show, I think it was our last show, we had the whole discussion about Chris Beard, Royale Ivy. Those were kind of the two names we talked about. We had this kind of good deep discussion about why we would like Royale Ivy and what was attractive about this kind of, I don't want to say because of him being an unknown, but kind of that the potential for him to grow into that role, like as a head coach at his alma mater and those kinds of things, and build this culture, the connection with the NBA, all those things. Well, that's not what happened. It was not Royale Ivy that ended up being the choice for head coach. Chris Del Conte went out and got Chris Beard, the big name. You can kind of say maybe the clear favorite amongst whether it's the donors or just the general kind of fan sentiment was Chris Beard was the guy. Go get him, and that's what he did. So. Jay, what do you think of this? It's I know we kind of have, and we'll get into this, I'm sure. We have some reservations, as there's going to be with probably any head coach, and I think there would have been some with Royale Ivy as well. But like,
sure,
How do you feel about this? How now that we've kind of, because of having the week off, this is, it's kind of been allowed to marinate and kind of settle in a bit. And how are you feeling today on this hire?
Yeah, the timing of it is interesting to be able to discuss this now, just like you said, because initially, sort of going off of that, the first thought that I had was what some of the downsides, some of the cons that we discussed last week or 2 weeks ago when we were discussing between Ivy and Beard. Having a week to let this sort of settle in and think about it, it's a good hire. I mean, it's a really good hire, and Cristo Conte is sort of settling in as in this athletic director, role as somebody that is going to go out and get a name that is going to, you're going to be okay. Like, this is the white whale. This is the big name. This is the big dog. However you want to describe it, and however we feel about Beard and his sort of style long term and what it could mean for this program in this coaching market right now, there weren't many names available or that could have possibly become available that were a better hire than Chris Beard in terms of stature and what they've accomplished as a head coach. So that's what he's doing. Like Sarkisian had a track record as a head coach, the good and the bad that came with that. Then as a coordinator in Alabama, and then you see what that track record is there. So Steve Sarkisian is the hire. Chris Beard, he does, gets a team to a Final Four. He consistently makes the NCAA tournament, which is something that Texas has been lacking in the last 6 years, just trying to get to the tournament, much less winning any tournament games. So it's almost like, okay, in my opinion, and we discussed this before as well, if you're hiring the next Rick Barnes for this program, I think you got to be okay. Like, we're getting a guy that's going to get us there consistently, and just you got to hope that they get hot and get on a run, and whatever he's doing is working that year, because he's done it at Tech to get to a Final Four. Can he do it at Texas? I don't know. Kerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, man, the Rick Barnes thing is really interesting because I think that kind of brings to mind like, like the whole recency bias type thing. I think people remember the late Rick Barnes years because that was the last like sample we had of Rick Barnes at Texas. And I think of that also like with Mac Brown. People think about the last years of Mac Brown and kind of put a negative spin on that. But if you told somebody like, hey, you're going to be hiring basically another Mac Brown for the football program, like you're going to take that, right? Given what the last decade of Texas football has been. And think about that in the basketball sense. You think about like those, early 2000s Texas basketball teams under Rick Barnes. Like, I think you're absolutely right that like, given the market, given kind of the dynamic right now in college basketball, like there wasn't a better realistic option than Chris Beard.
Right.
Really, and I really want to emphasize like the realistic aspect of it, because are there some other like good coaches out there that Texas could have tried to approach? Sure. How realistic were those options? Like Eric Musselman, sure. Was he, I saw something like the 13th highest paid coach in the SEC. And it's like, oh, well, just go offer more money. Well, Arkansas is going to pay him whatever he wants at this point. Like, and why leave there? He's about to build, and that's a program with, I mean, you could say Arkansas has got much better kind of basketball history and legacy than Texas does. Why would he leave? That's to me, that wasn't a realistic option. And you think about something like Porter Moser from Loyola, who just took the Oklahoma job. And it's like, okay, well, look at what he did with Loyola Chicago, getting them through, to these various stages of the tournament. But again, there's going to be questions about that. I mean, he's a defensive style coach as well. There's going to be, like, he hasn't done it at a big program and recruiting at big programs and those kinds of things. I mean, it's like Shaka again. So Chris Beard checks so many of those boxes. Power 5 conference, taking a team to a national title game, consistency with like getting to the tournament and performing in the tournament. He's an alum. All those things check so many of the boxes. And is it perfect? I mean, I think part of our discussion is like the playing style. I mean, like we want to see more like exciting. I mean, when we've had Mike on here, talking about the way that college basketball is changing, higher scoring games, more NBA style athleticism, those kinds of things. I mean, do you think Chris Beard being at a program that's not, he had a lot of success at Tech, so I don't want to say like a program that's not Tech, but recruiting to UT, recruiting to Austin, the size of the program, all those things, do you think that he starts to change his style a little bit? The more that he can start getting probably higher end recruits than what he was doing at Tech, like, and starts building the program around more athletic 5-star NBA talent.
I don't know if he can or if he's going to, but that's going to tell the tale of his success at the University of Texas, in my opinion, is if he can adjust to coach the type of players that he need or that he will now
Right.
be able to recruit. And he's already he's already a good recruiter. Like and he has people on his staff that he's bringing with him over from Tech that are good recruiters. So like, I'm not worried about, like he was already a good recruiter. And now that you're at Texas, who can you get to come to this school? And are you going to make them play the type of 50 to 47 game, that might happen with Texas versus Oklahoma with these two coaching hires, or it might be first to 50 on some nights with these two teams. But if he's willing to evolve to what college basketball is becoming with the type of talent that he will be able to recruit to the University of Texas, he's going to have a hard time not being successful.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to make that change though. How many coaches this late in their career are willing to evolve? And when you see coaches that do that, in their 50s, and after they've been stop, and they've built up a little bit of, okay, now I've been successful here. Now the ones that take the next step as a head coach are the ones that evolve later in their careers. And Chris Beard evolving would be the best possible thing to happen for the University of Texas basketball program. I'm not like totally 100% on board with the thought that he can get there, that he will do it. I'm not going to totally buy into that, but I think that this means enough to him. And Mike mentioned this specifically. It means enough to him to put in the work to do whatever it takes to be successful here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's going to put in the work. So is that work going to be evolving his game, his coaching style? I don't know, man. I think one of the things is, it's our excitement level about Chris Beard does not have to equal the anger level that Texas Tech fans have for him leaving. This is a really, really good hire. It's a great hire, but it's okay to have a little bit of, to not dive in, I guess, 2 feet in right away on Chris Beard.
Oh, sure.
In terms of,
sure.
right, in terms of the head coach that he'll be here.
Sure. And that's especially here, old man soapbox here about like, oh, this day and age, it's got to, you got to have these hot takes. You got to like from day one, either go, this guy's going to win 5 national championships in 6 years at Texas, or he's going to be the biggest failure of a hire. Like that, it doesn't have to be that way. Like in terms of how we discuss or like people react to the hiring. I mean, yeah. I'm with you. And I think we're all kind of on the same page with this. Like it checks a lot of the boxes. He is going to put in the work. He is going to engage the students. He's going to engage the fans. He's going to like do everything within his power to build an atmosphere, not just at the Irwin Center for this last season in that building, but like the Moody Center when that's open. Like he's going to do all those things. But we just don't know what it's going to look like on the court yet. And honestly, we may not know what his full vision and plan is going to look like on the court for another season or two.
Mm-hmm.
this season coming up with the way the portal is and all that stuff, like we don't really know I don't even know if he knows exactly who he's going to be working with on the court next fall. And it might just be a matter of like, okay, this is my roster and I'm going to kind of fine tune to do whatever I can with these pieces that are here to try to win some games before he actually starts to build and fill out the program with players he's recruiting. So that's where it's just patience. And I know that's hard. Like when these last few years with Shaka have been so frustrating about like, okay, we're building up to like, he's building this team, he's building this program. And here we are, here's a season where we can make a run, and then you hit Abilene Christian. But like, it's going to take time for us to really know if his plan is he adjusting, is he implementing it? And we're not, I just don't think we're even going to know after year one, honestly.
I agree, but I also think that having to piecemeal a team together works really well for what his coaching style is.
That's what he did at Tech.
The type of basketball that he coaches and the sort of schemes that he has been successful with in the past are with teams that he just had to be like, you do this really, really well. So that's when I put you into the game.
Right.
That's all you're going to do. Which is what good coaches do. They maximize the talent from each one of their players. And he finds a way to do that. So that's almost why, even though there will be a little bit of uncertainty with this roster, like what do you have, Brock Cunningham right now that said I'm in, and I don't know what else you've really gotten in terms of guys that are going to be like, I'm going to for sure be back, So, I mean, it almost lends to his style of coaching to have, a bunch of, scrappy, gritty players, if you will, to play that junkyard dog kind of ball. But then he will start to, get more guys like, Tamar Bates, the big recruit that Shaka Smart was having coming in. And, he's somebody that, hopefully will stay on in that class, but he committed to Shaka and what Shaka Smart had built up in this program. And that's like a quote from his dad. So is Chris Beard going to be able to even keep that sort of a recruit, those recruits on, or is he really truly going to have to start from scratch? And I'm leaning more and more towards that being the case here. And I think he'll be fine in this first year. Like, that's not a concern of mine this first year, to be quite honest. Like with as much as he's getting paid, like he needs to find a way to win some ball games.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But I think he'll be able to do it this year, regardless of what the roster looks like. If you get some, some guys with a little bit of talent, which you will at Texas, no matter what, these guys, they can play a little bit of ball. Then you coach them up and you win some games. Like I'm not worried about that. It's when this program needing to take the next step, win a tournament game,
right?
Get to the second weekend of the tournament, become somebody that is in a conversation every year for winning a Big 12 regular season championship.
Yeah.
And that's where, obviously the end goal should be.
Well, and that's the whole thing, right? And like, that's what we've talked about, throughout this season before, the tournament disaster and those things was like, there's so many bad bounces, so many breaks that go against you, all those things once you get into the tournament. So to like wholly judge like just tournament results. Now, obviously this Texas team should have got out of not just the first round, but like we were saying, you got to get out of the first weekend of this tournament.
Yeah.
Then at that point, it's, once you're into the Sweet 16, it's kind of like just let the breaks fall where they may. And like, so there's good teams that lose in the Sweet 16 and all those like things. So, but it's being in that conversation on a year-to-year basis. And that's where you hit the nail on the head. Is it realistic to expect like Big 12 regular season titles right out of the gate for this program? No, but be in the conversation for it. Be in the upper half of these standings in the Big 12 and like competing. Baylor's now the defending national champ. You got to deal with them. Tech, I don't think is really going to be going away with their style of play and, the kind of program that they have going there. There's Kansas. I mean, it's the Big 12. So, but just be in the conversation is all. And I think that was, for at least a good portion of Shaka's tenure was Texas was really not in that conversation in the Big 12.
No.
And so, yeah, that's we'll see how this roster shakes out, but that's kind of how I look at it going into next season. Finish in the top half of the Big 12.
Which this is going to be a good conference again. Like it's
Yeah,
there's understandable discussion about, well, maybe it'll be down a little bit, but you got the defending national champ, like you said. You've got Texas with the new, but even though these programs are going to have new head coaches, they're good head coaches. Like
right.
Oklahoma getting a coach from Loyola that has shown what he can do in a couple of tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Making nice runs, and that's what you want. You don't always have to win. You want your team to be able to compete for regular season titles. You want your team to win conference titles. Those are nice banners that you can put on the wall. But at the end of the day, you're trying to win national championships. And are you a coach that can coach the way that it takes to win tournament games? And he's shown that just in spite of that, grinded out style that they play, he finds a way to win tournament games year after year after year after year. So like those are the Big 12 still going to be a grind. You're still going to have that feel every single night. And even those teams that were winning one game in the whole conference this year, they're going to improve. Those teams are not. You're not going to get like an A&M from the early 2000s that didn't win a conference game, for a couple of seasons or whatever. Like this, those teams on the bottom are going to rise up a little bit and come back to the norm.
Oh yeah.
And the teams at the top are just sort of. It's not even rebuilding these programs really. There's pieces in place for the Big 12 to continue to be a really, really good conference, from 1 to 7 or 8 even, at any given time. So, yeah, I mean it's tough because will he be able to? And obviously from a Beard perspective, he has the ability. He's been coaching in the Big 12. It's rare that you see a coach move within the conference and already be so familiar with the style of basketball that's being played night in and night out. Chris Beard has no trouble with that. Will have no trouble with that because he's been doing it. So that's an advantage that he has in his back pocket too, which is another reason why I feel like, Texas will be in it next year. Their nose will be in it. They're going to win some games that they shouldn't win. They're going to lose some games that they shouldn't lose. But they'll end up being there at the end and probably make the tournament. And it's just because he's that kind of coach. That's not what we doubt. The doubts are can you coach the style of that he does at the University of Texas with the players that you recruit here and win national championships, because that's the goal.
Yeah, that's a big part of it here is you can play that kind of style at a lot of places that as long as you're winning, you're going to pack the building. It's kind of, I don't think when he was at Tech, their games had much competition in that town those evenings. It was like, that's what if you were in Lubbock, you went to the games. In Austin, it's a different story. It's like you have to you have to put something on the court that's going to draw people in, and if you're winning, of course, if you win, people show up. But like, I think people want to be entertained. I mean, it's entertainment. I think people want to go to whether it's the Irwin Center or the Moody Center in 2 years, like, and watch entertaining, fun basketball. I mean, I don't have any doubt that he's aware of this. That's the whole thing, with him being as familiar as he is with the University of Texas, being a student, all those things. And he was under Tom Penders, who created the Runnin' Horns, and that was probably the most entertaining basketball we've had here. And I think he's aware of that. And that's what drew fans in and got people engaged with Texas basketball in the 90s, was those Tom Penders Runnin' Horns teams. And I don't know. I feel a little confidence over him being aware of this. And I think the administration being aware of this. Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm maybe it's just some optimism about the new hire and feeling positive about it, but for some reason, I don't know. I feel like I think we're gonna be surprised.
Well, he said to find him all the brick walls. He's ready to run through them. For whatever. Check that off your new head coach bingo card.
Right.
Ready to
We're gonna
run
build
through
a
the brick
culture, and
walls. Yeah.
it's I don't know. It's an exciting time, I feel like.
But the other thing was, we're about one thing and one thing on winning. Okay, check that one off the box too.
Yep. Because a coach is going to get up there on day one and go, you know what? We don't really care that much about winning, but like, I mean, in a way, Tom Herman was kind of like that. Winning is
he
really hard.
was. It's hard,
We're
momentum
just here
is
to have
illusion.
fun.
Guys, let's just have a good time. Because if you have fun, you're gonna win. Except when you don't.
Then it's not fun.
And then it's not fun at all, and nobody's having fun, and then you're fired, and there's rumors that you were messing around with the jewelry, billionaire. Whatever. It's like Chris Beard though, man. I don't get those Tom Herman vibes from Beard.
Okay,
And
so
not
I was going to
the,
ask you about that.
Yeah. What you got?
Well, I was going to ask about that because since Tom Herman came up, it was like I've heard people kind of make that reference with Chris Beard. This kind of like this is Herman-esque in the way that this process went down. Like the donors, the people with the money, everybody like zeroed in on one candidate. There was one candidate that was going to, was the target. That was it. And it was,
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I don't think that the comparisons are really apt. Like, I think, for one, I think the stage that Chris Beard has had success is bigger than the stage that Tom Herman had success in Houston.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. It just, to me, it just doesn't. I think it's a kind of easy comparison to make, but it doesn't go that deep. Like, I don't think it really fits.
It is, but for only because it's at the school. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
right.
It's exactly what you said though. Like, Beard has done it at a high level before. When you come in and you're confident and you've never done it before, it's almost like you're stepping in. You're stepping in, and I know you don't want to pretend like the job is too big for you, but that's what it was for Tom Herman, and it proved that. It proved to be that throughout his tenure, that this job was just too big for him. Whether it was flipping off the double birds at the Longhorn Network camera, or like literally not being able to swing a sledgehammer and break the locker in the locker room, or
it's still one of my favorites. Yeah.
Or the head butting a player with your bare head and they have a helmet on. All of those moments show that this job was too big for Tom Herman. Chris Beard has already performed at the highest of levels and had success there. That's not a question. You can have confidence if you've been there before. Why shouldn't you have confidence that you can get there again? So that's where the comparisons stop for me. Are they, is Chris Beard, does Chris Beard think very highly of Chris Beard and his, yeah, I think so. But it's like, there's still a certain level of humble there.
Yeah.
Where you don't feel like it's just like, oh, this is going to be the Chris Beard show, like it was the Tom Herman show, the Mensa show. Chris Beard doesn't make you feel like he's smarter than you.
Right.
Like that's not, you already can feel like he's not going to be I'm the smartest guy in the room and I'm going to make sure you know it guy. And we've seen that at his time as Tech. I don't think he's that guy. And I don't think he's going to act that way, especially at this job. So that's the comparisons there for me are not, it sort of crumbles for me, that comparison. I don't buy into it.
Yep. I agree. He's been engaging. He's fun to listen to in the press conferences. What a time to have a guy like him and Sark on campus and talk about two guys you could listen to. And let's give a shout out to Vic Schaefer, another guy that I could just listen to.
Oh yeah.
talk about anything all day long. And talking about and all of those are Chris Del Conte hires, by the way. And talk about, I mean, just in terms of like engaging, like it just, I don't know, they all kind of strike me as genuine. They're going to shoot you straight, you know, and they're a lot more fun to listen to in press conferences than Tom Herman and, you know, Shaka were. So
Yeah, there's no
for
doubt
what it's
about
worth,
that.
that doesn't win you games, but like, you know, at least from like it's engaging though, from a
No,
fan perspective. Like it's,
sure, but from a fan perspective of what Chris Del Conte has done as an athletic director since he's been here, I don't think it's an accident that these coaches that are being hired are of this caliber anymore. Like Chris Del Conte, he can raise money and he can hire coaches. And he can interact with fans on Twitter. If you can raise money and keep donors happy, and you hire good head coaches, and you interact with fans and you keep fans happy, you're checking off every single box. And if he's doing all of those things well, and from that perspective, like obviously there's still a lot to be written here. Will these coaches actually end
oh
up
yeah,
being successful? But on the surface, you have to applaud Chris Del Conte and the work that he's done to raise the level of the athletic department in a very short amount of time since he's been here, to at least to whatever his standard is. And it's a standard that I like a lot and seems to be, from what we've seen with Schaefer, you know, and the softball coach, and you know, you know, the results are there. And he's going to be hiring a swimming and diving coach now to replace the greatest swimming and diving coach, one of the greatest coaches, period, in the history of collegiate sports. So, you know, that's another one to watch, you know, just to see in terms of his legacy. It's one that's more off the radar for most people, but it's still that, you know, how do you follow up Eddie Reese? You know, it's those little things as an athletic director that just totally cement a legacy on
yeah,
campus. You know, the football coach is the most important, the basketball coach is the second most important, but all of those other things happening, you know, going great as well, sure doesn't hurt, and it helps everything else, morale around campus. It lifts everything up. You know, the rising tide lifts all boats, sort of thing. And for me, that's what Chris Del Conte seems to bring to the table. So that's why I'm anxious to see what Sark does as a head coach, because I think, you know, we're obviously expecting big things from him. And then bringing in Chris Beard now, it's like you're hiring coaches at the highest level, and Texas fans have to be happy with the direction that Chris Del Conte has taken this department, athletic department.
yeah. I think it's amazing because I think if you would have asked us, let's just go 1 year ago. Let's go back to April of last year. If we would have had this conversation about, could you foresee a situation where the University of Texas basically is in a position of, and I don't want to say fire because Shaka moved on to Marquette. I think there was some mutual agreement there, but
Yeah.
basically where UT is replacing both the football and basketball coach in the same season. And I think a lot of people, if you would have asked that question a year ago or at any time, anybody that follows the program probably would have been a little hesitant to say yes on that. I think there would have been some like, well, it's going to be one or the other because the money, they're not going to want to pay the buyouts. They're not going to want to go get somebody pay a buyout and all these kinds of things, because that's the way Texas has kind of handled business pre Chris Del Conte.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are. And, you know, obviously the Urban Meyer situation and all that stuff didn't quite work out like the way that people were thinking it was going to work out, including us. But like, he went and, I mean, just to me, it's just kind of mind blowing after however many years from the 40 acres, all we heard about was like, well, Texas doesn't want to pay this. And, you know, think about under Charlie Strong, the issues with assistants and paying buyouts. And it was just all such a shit show. And now we've mentioned this before. Texas is acting like Texas. What's the buyout? Get it done. We're making a change because we're not seeing results up to expectations. And simple as that. And that's all you ask for as a fan is from the department is if it's not working, you have the means to change it. And
Right.
Chris Del Conte has. And I think just that alone is like, oh, great. Well, if a coach isn't working out, we're going to get into baseball here because, here soon, because that's David Pierce was not a Chris Del Conte hire, but like in a situation where, I mean, they're performing now. So this is not me saying like this is going to happen, but let's say somewhere down the road,
Yeah.
the baseball program's not performing. You have that confidence in your mind that like a change is going to be made for the success of the program. There's not going to be just
Right.
sitting on hands anymore and going, well, we don't know if we have the money we want to spend that money for a coach's buyout and then all that stuff. Like those days are done.
Over.
And and that alone is just like, okay, that's setting a standard. Like you mentioned, it brings everybody up. It puts a good pressure on every program to perform. Nobody's going to be hiding in this athletic department anymore behind bad results or just being like, oh, well, they're just not wanting, they don't want to spend the money to fire me kind of thing. And it's whatever. I don't know. It
Right.
gives me confidence that they're going to get it figured out. And if a coach isn't working, whether it's Chris Beard or Sark or any of these things, that they're going to make a move. They'll make the change. So
It's gonna happen, and you like to see that again. It's what you expect from a well functioning athletic department,
yeah,
which is something that has not happened at Belmont in a while. Let's just be really clear about that. I saw a clip the other day on I think it was Pat McAfee's show where he had Mac Brown on, and he goes, so I hear that over at Texas that there's a lot of different people that make decisions over there, and what's the sort of what's the real deal with what goes on over there in those offices on campus in Austin. And Max straight up said, he goes, when I was winning, I was the one making the decisions. I was the one making all the calls. And when I started losing, there were a lot more people that were, making decisions instead of me. And that's just a little insight into how this athletic department has been functioning for a long time. We're talking the late 90s when Mac Brown was here even. And I'm sure before that, Makovic, I'm sure it was the same before that. And before, we could go back and we can go on and on. It seems to me like Chris Del Conte is the guy that is stabilized up to this point.
right.
There's a general message. This is what we're doing. This is where we're headed. We're all on board. There's no questioning this. If you don't perform, you're done. If you do, we will reward you.
Right.
Period. That's how it's being run right now. And what else
can you ask
at this
for?
point, what else can you add? Bingo. Yep.
Yeah. And that's where, we'll see how the results go. But it's going to be a really fun fall.
Oh yeah.
New football and new basketball
great,
coach. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of buzz around this stuff no matter what. How quickly it falls off will be determined, if and when it
right.
does. Because we've seen it before. We've seen it. And okay,
Yep.
like, are we sure that the football team should be losing to Maryland, to open the season? Are we sure? Things like that. So just to open up that old wound for a little bit there.
God.
Twice.
It's the jet sweep, Tom. Here it comes. Oh, we didn't see that on film.
You must not have watched any film then, Tom, because the rest of us did. The rest of us knew it was coming. And even if we didn't, we saw within the first 3 minutes of them having the ball. Anyways, positive things ahead. I think that's a good transition here, Kerry. What do you say? You want to transition into some spring football here?
Let's hit on some
Sark.
A positive spring experience here.
Yeah, another PSE. Yeah,
a positive Sark experience.
Man, this is a branding thing. We're gonna have to get on this. It starts with positive sports experience, but we've got a lot here. There's levels to this.
It's too bad Beard's like his name doesn't start with an S. That'd be perfect too. Well, I guess we kind of missed the boat with like a positive strong experience, a positive Shaka or a smart experience. But
either way, I don't think we would have been able to
No.
use that very often with those. So onward and upward, as they say.
Yeah, let's move on from that. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's hit on some spring ball real quick. Spring game is 2 weeks from yesterday. That is still going to move forward as planned. Texas has kind of come out of their COVID stoppage. Some players went to Miami apparently for spring break and brought some things back with them.
I
As
mean
college,
that would usually happen anyway, but this
yeah,
time, it's a different kind of virus
yep. I
that they
mean,
brought
it's
back with them.
college kids. What do you do? But things are back running there. I guess the Horns had a 100-play scrimmage the other day. It
Yeah.
sounded like everybody came out healthy. I saw a quote. I think Sark said something like, the buy-in's great with that. They were really excited. It wasn't a perfect scrimmage. There's still a lot of things to work on, but he was pretty happy with how things are looking. Jay, anything you got on spring ball? Any names you're hearing? We kind of joke about the bingo card of like, oh, who's the emerging leader? Who's the player that's
Yeah.
really showing some flashes that we hadn't seen before?
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
Well, there's two things that are coming out of camp right now that are the most exciting to me. Or actually, there's three. First one is that Jaden Alexis, the speedster that is new to campus, the speed is as translated to the 40 acres. It is as advertised, and there's word that his strength and conditioning. He's taking that seriously and improving on that as well. So he's going to need to, because he's a smaller statured guy. He's going to need to put a little bit of muscle on him and to take a pounding across. If he's in that slot position, he's going to be running across the middle a little bit, maybe even some jet sweep stuff. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but they're going to be able to put these football players into positions to be successful. And Alexis is one of those guys that I'm very excited about. The second thing that is directly related to that is there's less rigidity in terms of where guys are having to line up on the field. And we knew that was coming with Sark, with his type of offense, but it's the word coming out of spring camp is that that's holding true. There's guys that are used to only having to line up in the slot, and now Sark is putting them out wide, moving them around from side to side, and getting them in. Some of those guys that maybe you saw flashes from as receivers early on would score some touchdowns early on. Why is his name escaping me? Daniel. Anyway, either way, there's that receiver that what's his name? I'm blanking now, but either way, there's guys that are moving around now a lot more that are going to be able to not just have to play in a slot on the right side of the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what under previous coaches, that was a big deal. You'd look at the personnel that was on the field and you're going, okay, does Brewer really need to be in on every play right here? Kind of thing, get the weapons on the field and then figure it out. To me, it's so simplistic, but when you actually hear, coaches will talk about that. Oh yeah, we're going to get our best players on the field. But to apparently actually have that already be the case, put the weapons out there, turn them loose, get the ball into the playmaker's hands and score.
For some reason, I had Daniel Young stuck in my head, the running back. I was thinking of, now I lost his name again. Joshua Moore.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Joshua Moore not having to just be in one spot here outside, or, being able to move him around a little bit, because we saw Joshua Moore in flashes last year have good games here, but then he would just disappear. And a lot of that was scheme, not being able to
Exactly.
them not working him around and putting in the mid position to be successful. Sorry, I blanked on that one, guys.
No.
I couldn't think, but it was Joshua Moore was the receiver that I was thinking of. That for him to be able to move, he'll be one of those that will benefit.
Exactly.
That will benefit greatly from that start.
I think about him only getting that one catch versus Oklahoma State, and the announcers talking about that during the entire game. And at halftime, all those things, he didn't have a catch till the fourth quarter, I don't think. But at half, the Fox crew, all that stuff, are going, this is your leading receiver. You haven't even targeted him yet. How are you not doing this? And then finally he gets a catch in the game, and the announcers are like, there he is, one catch,
right.
Your leading receiver. And we talked
And it
about
was
like with
like,
Jared Wiley, you know,
oh yeah,
well, the defense dictates where we go. It,
yeah, and it's horrific. It was horrific.
uh,
But here, and Kerry, I'll let you expand a little bit on this one. But I think maybe the most impactful thing for me coming out of spring ball is that Bijan Robinson is going to be more involved in the passing game.
yeah, I think anybody who's followed this show and heard us talk throughout football season and all these things about what he does and how good of a player he is, would understand why we'd be excited about that happening. Which is gonna, this is so to expand on this a little bit, and I find this really, really interesting because as we're talking about getting playmakers all over the field, all those kinds of things, not really being so rigid in position. You think about guys like Whittington, obviously, who can kind of play anywhere on the offensive side of the ball. Is he going to be a receiver? Is he going to be in the backfield? Where are you going to, you're going to have him in motion? What are you going to do? But on the Bijan Robinson thing, what I found interesting is that basically in camp, Roshan Johnson's been so good at tailback that it sounds like it's been about a 50-50 split with first team reps with Bijan and Roshan Johnson. Which then you go, okay, well, come on, why is that the case? Bijan's got to be the guy. He's got to be the guy. Is this a case of just having your best players on the field? Just because Roshan Johnson's getting those snaps at tailback doesn't mean that Bijan Robinson's going to be off the field. Maybe he'll split out. Maybe he'll be in like, to me, that's exciting. Like, I know some people have had the negative reaction of like, why is Roshan Johnson getting 50-50 carries with the first team? Like, Bijan, I think, is going to get his touches. Now, whether they're from handoffs in the backfield or he's splitting out, catching balls out in the flat, all those, he's going to get his touches. I don't think we're looking at a situation like last year where it was like, he had 5 touches in this game. Why the hell aren't you getting the ball to your better players? But anyway, that's
Yeah,
where I
no,
just, it's fascinating in the context of talking about that fluidity with positions. And who gives a shit if he's only in the backfield 50% of the time? If he's getting his
yeah,
touches and getting the ball up the field, who cares? It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah. And if Stan Drayton, the running backs coach, has anything to say about it, it will be more of a timeshare in terms of who's in that backfield. That's how he handles substitutions. That's just the type of running backs coach that he is. So, I mean, it's something that Texas fans should get used to the idea of with these two talented running backs. And Roshan Johnson knows that he's not. I think he understands that he's not Bijan Robinson. Like, he gets that, but he also understands that he very much will have a role on this team, and will be good at it. I mean, he's
Yeah.
going to be good at that role, and will get a ton of touches every single night. So, I mean, like, basically, it comes down to, we're hearing these things now. We're hearing Bijan Robinson will be more involved in the passing game. When we get to Saturdays in the fall, is that going to become a reality? Is Steve Sarkisian actually going to put the best players on the field and put them into positions to be successful, instead of needing your 9th wide receiver on the depth chart to be on the field for 10 reps a game just because you want to rotate everybody in?
Well, and he's a good kid and studies hard, and
He earned that playing time. Well, you know what? Maybe he did, but playing time is not equal opportunity. I'm sorry. Like,
nope.
my basketball coach and high school coach Hugo Dorn used to always say, like, shooting is not equal opportunity. Scoring is, but shooting's not. If you're going to be on the field and you are a playmaker, playmaking is not equal opportunity. Anybody can be a playmaker, but getting those plays to be a playmaker is not an opportunity that has to be afforded to every single person that's on the roster. And that's something that I think we'll see more of Steve Sarkisian, is the right people will be on the field at the right time, as opposed to it's 3rd and 9 with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and you have your third string slot guy on the field at that time, and your best receiver is not in the game. So, I mean, like,
But hey,
I
well,
don't
that's
think,
okay
you know,
because if you don't convert that third down, you can then have your punter throw a downfield pass that if he doesn't connect on, you can blame him because he didn't read his route tree. He didn't go through his progressions.
yeah,
And
your backup punter didn't go through the progressions. Just put it off on him.
backup punter. I forgot that part of it. Yeah.
He was, yeah, he's not even, you know, poor Dicker, the kicker, wasn't even the actual punter. He had to fill in because what's his name, Buchevsky had to, you know, miss some time or whatever, and that's typical Tom Herman stunt right there. I don't think you're going to hear Steve Sarkisian throwing his punter under the bus for not making his second read on a fake punt. I don't think. Man, Herman is he did this to us, man. Like,
this is what we've turned into. Like, this is.
but that's Tom Herman. That's why he was not successful at Texas, because that's the type of cat that he is, man. Like, it's just is not. I don't feel like he is like a guy that is ever going to be in a conversation to be a national champion type of a coach, because he just doesn't. It's, I don't know, man. Because he's throwing punters under the bus, and he calls him punter. He doesn't even call him by name. The kicker.
Sark
That's
really
such a
needs to
punk
get this
thing.
season here and go off and
God,
going.
man, no kidding, because that's the only thing that's going to wash that off.
Yeah,
Wash the
I
Tom
cannot
Herman
wait to
filth
start
off of me.
complaining about Sark's play calling and like
No kidding.
criticizing
Yeah,
that.
it's going to be such a refreshing thing to be able to be mad at somebody else.
That should be like the the subtitle of like this show is like, it's so refreshing to get mad at somebody else.
That's perfect. That's
Yeah,
perfect,
I think that's
dude.
why we're so optimistic about, well, we have a new football and basketball coach. Like, all right, here we go. A fresh new beginning, someone new we can get mad at and criticize in new fun ways. It's never the same criticism,
No, it's not.
So who knows what treasures await us this fall?
Yeah. Can't wait to unwrap that gift.
Is Sark going to screw up a coin toss? Can we,
Oh yeah,
do that? There was, what joys await us? And
can't wait, man.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Well, let's hit on some current things happening. Let's hit on the Sluggin Horns real quick. The Texas baseball team. God, man, they're on a tear. Now, we were talking about it before the show. I've got the schedule up here, the recent scores, and today's the series finale against Kansas State, who, God, talk about a team that's probably wanting to get the hell out of Austin today, because Texas beat them 15-1 yesterday, 13-6 on Friday, and then going back over the last few games, 9-1 over Stephen F. Austin, 14-4 over A&M Corpus, 11-2 over Kansas, 7-0 over Kansas, 5-2 against Kansas, and that's all since that tough loss in College Station against A&M. Man, they are just beating the hell out of teams right now, and they're number 4 in the country. Texas is like, we keep bringing up that early season tournament in Arlington against those teams from the SEC. Well, 4 of those teams are in the top 5. That group of 4, including Texas, is top 5 teams in the country. And man, I mean, now the schedule doesn't get, there's still some, Texas, we've discussed this, the Big 12 schedule for them is a little backloaded here.
Yeah.
So while Texas is number 4 in the country, we've got Tech coming in at number 8, TCU number 10, Oklahoma State 14. That's how this schedule's going to shake down. Out, Texas has Nevada and Abilene Christian. Ugh.
Oh man.
Coming
hearing Abilene Christian, this makes me
man.
And
then a trip to San Marcos to play Texas State on 4/20, before a trip to Stillwater. And that's where this schedule is going to start really. they're pounded on some really bad teams right now. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're pitching well.
Exactly.
They're hitting the ball well. They're doing what a good team is supposed to do. But the real test is going to be those 3 straight Big 12 series in Stillwater against Oak State. Then they turn around and host Tech in Austin, and then go to TCU. Like the 3, I mean, you're talking about the 3 other, top ranked teams in this conference. That's going to tell us a lot about where this team is in the, I mean, not just the Big 12 race, obviously, but in the national race. Like we
Sure.
talk about the SEC and baseball there and how they beat up on each other. And, that's where Texas gets to that part of the schedule this season. And I, I mean, it's easy to look at what they're doing now and say, this is impressive. They look like the number 4 team in the country. They're in position to be hosting a regional and a super regional potentially, and all that kind of stuff. And it's, that's what the expectations are at Texas. But we're going to find out how good this team really is with those 3 conference series coming up over the next month and a half.
Out of their last 21 games, they're 18-3. 2 of those losses were on Sundays
Right.
in series that they had already won. The third loss was a tough one against A&M in College Station, where the Aggies just were better. Pitching was better that day. It was a great game.
Well, it's still a midweek game.
And it's a Tuesday. Yeah, exactly. That was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So you got 2 Sunday losses after you've already won a series and a midweek game. Those are your only losses out of your last 21. It's exactly what they're supposed to be doing right now before they hit this tougher stretch, I should say, in their schedule.
Yep.
And one of the things that we discussed earlier on in the season was, is this going to be a team that pitching was going to have to carry it throughout the season? And lately, some of these bats have really been coming alive. Some of the younger guys that are seeing more college pitching and are adjusting to the game more are starting to get hits and get on base in key spots. And that's what you would expect from a Texas baseball program that's playing at a high level, to go 18-3 during the middle of a season and go on a nice run like this against competition that they should really handle. So it's gonna be fun. Texas State coming to town. Wait, is that? No, that's in San Marcos. That's right. That's what you said. That's gonna be a fun one midweek there. But then Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and TCU. Boom, boom, boom. Like you said, it's gonna tell a tale. So it's good. It's good to pile up these wins early in your schedule, in terms of creating sort of a postseason resume, in terms of being a team that's ranked as high as they are right now. So if you do lose a series down the road, it's not as big of a hit. Which in baseball, that's bound to happen.
It's baseball.
It's baseball.
Yep.
It's you're going to lose a series throughout the season. It's going to happen. It's no matter how good you are. So it's just how you respond to that, and building up these wins early in the season definitely helps. After those 3 losses to start the season in that tournament, I mean,
they've played like the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah, exactly. You lose an extra inning game to Houston. You lose the 2 Sunday games, and you lose a Tuesday game. That's it. Since that opening tournament against teams that are all in the top 5 or 6 right now too. So it's like it's where you want to be. So as the season goes on, we'll dive a little bit more into this and then follow their progress, and look forward to maybe they'll be hosting a regional here. By the looks of it, they would be definitely hosting a regional tournament here to start off the postseason for college baseball. And if they stay ranked this high, a super regional as well if they could advance. So,
yeah. And one more thing I want to hit on real quick before we move on. Dishwalk Field has traditionally always been a pitcher-friendly place. It's not a place where the ball travels out a lot. It's Texas putting up the number of runs that they're doing at Dishwalk Field is something to really keep an eye on, because as we've seen with good Texas teams in the past, it's like, you've got guys that like only hit a few home runs during the season, but then they travel, they go somewhere for a super regional or a regional, or end up in Omaha, and all of a sudden the ball is just getting crushed. And that's where it's like, if they're hitting the ball like this at the Dish, like this team might put up some big numbers. on the road. And that's where like that trip to Stillwater is going to be so interesting, is if they can go up there and if the batting can translate. I just don't remember a Texas team putting up these kinds of numbers, like 15 runs, 13 runs consistently like they have been over the last month at home.
Been a
Like
while.
it's really impressive, because this is not traditionally like kind of what we've, come to know with Texas baseball, Augie ball and all those kinds of things. It's just because of a lot of it was the park. It's a hard place to hit home runs. Not anymore, apparently. Not with this team. They're crushing it.
Well, they're finding ways to do it, finding ways to drive in runs, get on base.
Yeah.
Timely hitting, all that stuff. That's when you talk baseball, it's like, well, those are all the cliche things, but when you're doing all of them well, you win.
Right.
There's a reason that people talk about them in that way. So, and Texas is doing all of those things right now, and pitching well when they need to as well. So it's not just the fact that they're scoring 13 runs every once in a while, but their Friday and Saturday pitchers have been looking really good. Will they be able to solve the Sunday mystery? Especially if they're I've already won a series going in, and you sort of let off the gas a little bit, and
right.
It's just human nature to do that sometimes. So it's again, a lot of things that exciting happening on the 40 acres right now. When the baseball team's playing this well, you got 2 new coaches in football and basketball. So it's plenty to talk about, plenty of buzz on the 40 acres for sure.
Well, man, let's wrap up today with a little Austin FC note. We're less than a week away from the first ever regular season official match next Saturday against LAFC. But Austin FC just wrapped up yesterday the La Copita tournament with a 5-1 win over San Antonio FC. Jay, anything to take away from this? It was a close loss to Houston Dynamo in the first game, and then after it went to a penalty shootout with FC Dallas in the second game that Austin lost, and then anything to take away from this? It sounds like just getting fitness up, kind of rotating the lineups and seeing what the coach has.
Yeah, that's what you want out of these preseason tournaments. It's nice to win a trophy, and that's fun to do that sometimes. But really, just to see what you have out of the club and to get a win under their belt, and just to get that feeling before it's starting the regular season on the road for like 2 months, right?
Yeah,
the stadium won't be ready to go, but to get a win even in a preseason game like that is nice to get under your belt. And a lot of players got a lot of time. Wolf got to see a lot of players in the formations, in the sense that he was going to want to play, and to see, just to see what he has in that high level sort of it's not a scrimmage. You're not going green on black, I guess, if they are, however they split up their colors at an Austin practice. You're going. It's guys with another color jersey on. So, getting to do that and to get a win while doing that is nice. No, not a ton to take away. It's Austin FC is planning on, as a franchise. They expect to be in the playoffs in the first season of MLS. The way that they've constructed this roster and had their
Welcome back, everybody. A little technical difficulty there, but we're back. We are back. And
we're back.
Well, Jay, I know we were in the middle of Austin FC talk. I think just one thing I'll add on that. I think this team's going to be exciting to watch. I think from the little bit I've seen from the preseason stuff, they're going to score some goals. The defense might not be that great yet, but it's going to be entertaining. So could be some real back and forth action with this group. So, which is kind of what you want.
Yeah, bingo. That's exactly what you want, man. That's what you want out of a new team, out of some, a franchise that's trying to, not that they have to worry about drumming up any interest, because everybody's going to these, there's so much excitement around this already. But yeah, man, like the fact that it's they're looking like they're gonna score some goals is exciting. And that was sort of what I was getting at right before we dropped real quick. But it was like the way that they've constructed this team and worked through the draft. It is going to be a team that's going to be fun to watch. And and we're gonna get an opportunity here real quick to see what they have against it's LA, right?
Yep. Yeah. LAFC, who's one of the better teams in the
LAFC.
league. And that's going to be a really good test coming out of the gate in their
Yeah.
stadium. And yeah, let's get to it. We'll either, I don't know what our schedule is for next week. We're either going to do a match preview or maybe just if we record on Sunday, a recap of the
We'll see
first
how it
ever
goes.
match. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But well, man, I think that's about all I got for this week, man. And Jay, anything you want to close with?
Yeah. This past week, DMX passed away, rapper. He, for a while there was a stretch of time where there weren't many that were better than him, were hotter than him. I think you made a really good point of a time frame to where after Tupac and Biggie died, and when Southern rap sort of started to take over in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
that DMX was one of those rappers that really filled the void there. Super, super talented. He's the only rapper to have his first 5 solo albums debut at #1. And he was the first living hip hop artist to have 2 projects go platinum in the same year. That's the type of level of talent and just how good he was at his peak. And his peak was for a nice stretch of time there. So he battled his demons.
Yeah.
He had his demons, but he, when he was at his peak, there weren't many better, man.
No, and it's just, yeah, it is fascinating to look back on like just kind of that timeline, and that run, like you mentioned, that kind of like 97 to 2001 like run there it was short, but it doesn't get much more impressive than what he did in that short of a span. And
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, in my mind, yeah, just that kind of transition. He was the right place in the right time in a way when Tupac Biggie stuff happened and they pass away, and then this kind of bridge into what, like Southern hip hop kind of taking over the whole scene. And yeah, then you have DMX right in the middle of that. And it's kind of this like just an interesting kind of dynamic there. But
yeah, I mean, there were other rappers during that time that had success. Jay-Z was, really coming into his own at that time. But DMX is no doubt one of those voices that sort of carried rap through that time where when you lose Notorious B.I.G., when you lose Tupac, and 2 of the guys in that industry that were really going to be, they were going to be the monsters in the rap game, if you will, for a long, long time.
and then they're gone.
And all of a sudden they're taken away. And then
right.
How does the genre recover? And there were multiple people that stepped up and filled that void, but DMX filled it like not many others did. And
right.
He's somebody that, his demons finally ended up getting to him. So yeah, big loss for the rap community, for hip hop in general. And yeah, he's somebody that make sure if you're a fan of that kind of music, that you make sure that you're familiar with his work, because good stuff.
For sure. Yeah, glad you mentioned that. That was, yeah, it's a shame, but hey, it's life, right? But,
yep.
Well, man, this has been good to get back at it after a little Easter break. And yeah, man, let's do it again next week.
Let's do it again, man. Good show, man. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate you guys.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.